It's nefarious, man. Like, the brain works in fucked up ways.
The mind is one of the most deceiving, manipulative pieces of equipment, flesh, human bodies on earth. I never have trusted my brain.
All of that weight lives in your head, and you are the decision maker.
Psychology of Entrepreneurship.
Hi, it's Kaylee. If this is your first volume, welcome. This is a weekly series where we go inside the mind of an entrepreneur, artist, athlete, academic to decipher what is the psychology behind our decisions. I'm Australian, and I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional custodians throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and community. I pay my respects to them and their cultures, and to the elders past, present and emerging of the land I am standing on today. I extend my respect to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who listen to this. Today on the Psychology of Entrepreneurship, we're going to be revisiting volume 21 of the series, where we talked with the self-help guru Melissa Ambrosini about her journey from rock bottom to success. If you haven't been with us for any of these kinds of volumes, we're pretty much going to play volume 21 and tie in clips from our other incredible guests from previous volumes to see if we can connect the dots and unravel the entrepreneur mind a little more. Melissa is an amazing entrepreneur. Her story is inspiring, and the lessons that she's learned along the way have not only saved her life, but helped plenty of others around the world as she continues to educate people today. If you're someone who might be making some big changes or decisions in your life right now, this volume's for you. Not only does Melissa give us her tips and strategies on how to help navigate your way out of a hard place or into a new and challenging role, we also have the wisdom of some of our other extraordinary guests as well along the way. So stay tuned for that, and I'll be back later in the volume to guide you through.
Hi, it's Ronsley. If this is your first volume, welcome. This is a weekly series where I go inside the mind of an entrepreneur, artist, athlete, academic to decipher what is the psychology of our decisions. While I script this volume, it is the 17th of February 2020, and this volume will go live in 11 days. Today, I also announced that for the first time in 5 years, our podcast conference, We Are Podcast, will have a female headliner. I am so excited about that because I've been trying to achieve that for the last 3 years for sure. See, We Are Podcast is the first podcasting conference in the Southern Hemisphere. We started it back in 2015. It is specifically for business owner podcasters and brands that have podcasts. And we've had amazing speakers like John Lee Dumas, Darren Rouse, Jordan Harbinger, Pat Flynn, and Nathan Chan headline our previous years. So I'm excited to say that this year, We Are Podcast will be headlined by this amazing soul.
My name is Melissa Ambrosini, and I'm a best-selling author. I've got 2 books that are out at the moment, Mastering Your Mean Girl and Open Wide. I'm a podcaster and speaker, and everything I do is with the intention to empower people to unlock their full potential and live their best life.
Today, we go inside the mind of a best-selling author, podcaster, keynote speaker, teacher, but more importantly, a wife, friend, dancer, and actor with her own IMDb page. I was lucky to have this interview experience because I drove a couple of hours from our studios in Brisbane to the National Park in Noosa to be welcomed into her home for lunch that her husband, Nick, cooked for us. That was special indeed. So to help you with context, I wanted to start with Melissa's motto in life.
When I interviewed David Wolf on my podcast, who's a beautiful human being, he said to me, "Today is the best day ever." And he says it like that. And he says, write it on your mirror. And he said, treat every day like the best day ever. And I literally, that is my motto. I'm like, and I asked myself, what can I do to make this the best day ever? Like, what can I do? And sometimes it's like, for me today, I want to go for a swim. Or it's like, I want to catch up with a girlfriend. Like or I want to have a good conversation with my husband, or I want to make a picnic and go and have lunch with him or something like that. But every day wake up and ask yourself, what will bring me the most joy and what will make today the best day ever?
What will make today the best day ever? Sometimes this question is a bit much. Our minds make up all sorts of reasons why that isn't a relevant question to ask, because I actually have to worry about a whole bunch of things, including the bills, the people that rely on me, the career I've worked hard to build, the life I currently have. The list is endless. But stopping to ask this question every day would help, I suppose, because that would mean that after a while, the mind would run out of excuses, I suppose. Because here's the kicker. We all know what would make our lives amazing. And we unconsciously engineer scenarios to make sure we feel enough pain to make that change that our soul really desires. Because to every high point, there is a backstory.
2010 was when I had my awakening, so to speak. Before that, I was actually a professional dancer. I danced at the Moulin Rouge in Paris. I did acting and TV presenting and a little bit of modeling. And that's what I'd done. I started dancing when I was 3 years old. So all I knew was performing. All I knew was dancing and acting and all of that stuff. And then after living in London for 2 years, in Paris for a year, I moved home and I didn't want to come home. My visa expired. I had to be back here because there was no other option. My friends dumped me. The guy I was seeing dumped me. I had to move home, so I had to leave my thriving career in the UK. My health was plummeting. I was in and out of emergency. I had no money. I was sleeping on my friend's single fold-out hospital bed in her lounge room. And I just was like, what has my life come to? Like, is this really it? Is this really it? So I did what a lot of people do, and I drowned it in partying. So I spent a year partying and being in and out of emergency and the hospital because my body was just telling me to stop and slow down. And what you're doing is not good for you, Melissa. And I ignored it and I ignored it and I ignored it. The universe kept on trying to give me these little warning signs. And then the universe literally pulled the rug from underneath me. And I ended up in hospital for a week, just over a week. And I had a whole host of health issues. Like basically my entire immune system shut down. So I had so many physical health issues. I had like chronic fatigue, adrenal fatigue. I got the worst case of the cold sore virus that the doctors had ever seen. I had them all over my face, like in my mouth and down my throat. Couldn't eat, drink, couldn't even talk. Like my mouth was closed shut because there was sores all over my face. Like, and if I went to open my mouth, I'd crack all the sores and they would bleed. Like it was so painful. So I was dealing with all this physical stuff. And then on top of that, dealing with the emotional side of things. So I was dealing with depression, anxiety, and panic attacks.
Everyone else's wake-up call just seems like great stories until we decide to really look at the wake-up calls we've already had in life, the ones that repeat themselves, ever so subtly. Effects of psychological trauma is always physically experienced, as Dr. Pat Ogden, PhD, founder and director of the Sensory Motor Psychotherapy Institute recalls.
I worked with one woman that I'm thinking about. I mean, I never would have come up with this for her. She tended to get very hyper aroused. And as we started exploring that in her body, I was tracking for if there were ways that her body would automatically try to calm her, because if you see that in the body, then you can capitalize on it and it can have meaning for the person, okay? And her hands kept coming together like this. And so I asked her about that. And it was so touching because as she felt her hands and experienced that, she was reminded of her mother, who had passed away a terrible death from alcoholism alone in a slum, you know, and her hands took her to a very positive experience of her mother. She loved her mother's hands. Her mother had very beautiful hands, and she remembered her mother's hands holding hers. So this became a gesture that she could do consciously to calm her down and implicitly trigger those positive attachment memories of her mother.
In a study conducted by the Trauma Center at Justice Resource Institute, 64 women diagnosed with suffering from PTSD were assessed on how yoga affected their mental health. After 10 weeks, the women who practiced yoga once weekly had fewer symptoms of PTSD. In fact, 52% of participants no longer met the criteria for PTSD at all.
Here is Russell Brand, the famous comedian, talking about yoga.
Yoga, it reduces cortisol, the stress hormone. Yoga, 64 women who were suffering from PTSD had their symptoms reduced by the practice of yoga significantly over a 1-month period. Is yoga a necessary salve to the problems of contemporary living? Is yoga a physical way of incorporating spirituality into your daily life? Is yoga much more than a fitness fad, much more than aerobics with incense? I would say it is, because I've been practicing yoga for a long time. And what I sometimes need is a physical component to my spiritual practices. Sitting around meditating, I do that every day, and it's wonderful and it's necessary. But as a supplement to it, the practice of moving the body in alignment with the breath, learning to move free from constant thought, these are powerful ideas. Of course, there's the obvious physical benefits in terms of your body feeling stronger and more flexible, and evidently hormonal benefits, this reduction of cortisol.
If you listened in on our last volume, you would have heard Emily Fletcher and Cami Neckvipple's thoughts on the benefits of yoga. Here's Cami again on the power of yoga and how it's helped her center herself and change the way she views her environment.
The power of yoga is not about whether you can get your leg over your head. The power of yoga is, can you be with yourself? That's it. That's it. And we want the pumping music and we want the flow and it is, all of that is great. But I think the power in something like yin, and also the yogas that have sequences, I think people miss that. It's not about yoga arms or, yoga butt or whatever it is. It's about being able to be with myself so that I can be with other people. That's the gift that yoga has given me. And it's made me more tolerant. I used to be a very intolerant person and a very judgmental person. And I think that was because I had felt judged so much. And we become an extension of the environment that we're in. And yoga helped me unpick that. Yoga helped me unpick the judgment, because I didn't like myself when I was judging other people. I didn't enjoy my own company when I was doing that.
And I was in hospital feeling the most unwell I've ever felt, but the most alone I have ever felt in my entire life. And I literally was like, is this it? Is this what we are here for? To suffer? And at this time I was 24 years old, 23, 24, can't remember, one of those ages. And a few weeks before this, that I ended up in hospital, I just started this thing called yoga. And I was like, what is this yoga business? It feels so good. So I just started it. So I'd met these new friends at yoga and they sent me a care package to the hospital. And in that care package was like crystals and angel cards and teas and herbal tinctures and a book that changed my life. That book was Louise Hay's You Can Heal Your Life. And I remember reading this book and I would turn to my mom and I said to her, why didn't you tell me that we create our own life? Why didn't you tell me that we are creating our own reality moment by moment? She would just look at me and she's like, Melissa, I was doing the best that I could. And absolutely everyone is always doing the best that they can. And I did go through a blame stage toward my parents. And, I have moved through that and I'm so grateful and I just love and adore them now. And that was the awakening for me. I read this book and I literally, like that, decided to change my entire life. There was this voice inside me that said, if you get healthy and happy again, you'll live a life beyond your wildest dreams. And I didn't know what that voice was. I now know it's your intuition, but I didn't know what intuition was back then.
There's not a stitch of activewear in these yoga classes. It's all about hard hats, high vis and steel toe boots and helping tradies transform their physical and mental health.
Meditation has completely changed my life.
Tools down, bums up.
Yeah, a little bit uncoordinated, but we'll get there.
I got a wedgie, but that's all right.
Anywhere you can find a space to sit. It could be in the smoko shed, could be in the car, wherever you are.
Yoga, Pilates and meditation help mental and physical health, two areas that many tradies struggle with, according to research.
That was a current affair report done a year ago. I remember Philip McKernan in Volume 1 talk about the biggest tragedy in today's world.
It's the fact that we are becoming so disconnected and we're forgetting how to feel, and society doesn't reward us with emotion. It rewards us based on intellect and what is perceived as to be successful. And a lot of us are focusing and obsessing about living in the now. I don't want to fucking live in the now if my now is shit. I have no interest in living in the now if my now is shit. Or the rest of us are forward focused. My work and what I believe is if you want to understand who you are at the core, intellectually and emotionally, there's only one place to go, and that is into your past. That is the place that holds every key to who you are and who you're going to be, whether you like it or not.
If we don't accept who we are, the transitions we make to become someone else don't come from the most genuine of places. But that isn't done consciously. You are unique.
There is only one you. No one can do you better than you. They can try. I can try to be you. I could dress like you, but it just wouldn't work. No one is you. And the world needs you. The world needs you and your uniqueness and your quirks and your gifts, whatever that is. And when we don't share that, when we aren't our authentic self and we aren't sharing our true self, we're doing a disservice to the people around us and to the world. So I feel like it's our duty to be our true self and to just share that without the comparison piece of looking at everybody else, and to just share that with whoever it is, whether it's our partner, our kids, or 100,000 people on Instagram. We do need to share who we truly are. There's nothing else that we need to do. We don't need to try and emulate anyone or be anyone. And I think when I realized that there was no other Melissa Ambrosinis in the world, there is no one doing exactly what I'm doing with my voice, because they're not me. They're not in my body. And we're all so beautiful and we're all so unique and we all have a message to share. So we've got to stay in our own lane.
Sometimes it can be hard to be our true selves when we're constantly comparing ourselves to others. And I'll admit, it's a habit that almost seems impossible to break. We can do it without even consciously trying. In Volume 51, child psychologist and educator Kari Sutton gave us some insight on how we can shift our mindsets to create a more positive outlook on ourselves.
So you're building a firm foundation on a positive belief. If we allow bullies to fill our head, and what we focus on grows, and if we continually think, oh, you're scrawny scrags, that's what this person said. If we focus on that, that negativity is going to fill our heads, and we're going to find things to almost, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. So if they say, oh, you're a fat cow, You're going to find things that say, if that's what you're choosing to focus on, that's what they're going to do. Look at all these strengths you have. These are the great things. That is just one person's opinion. Do you value that person? Is that person being a good friend? If they're a supposed friend, are they being a good friend? If they're not, we then look at maybe you need to find some other friends.
Coming up after the break, how to tame the voice and one of my alter egos, redonkulous Ronsley.
Psychology of entrepreneurship.
Our aim with this audio documentary has always been to build a strong community of entrepreneurs and creatives to provide a space where they can use their voice to share their authenticity with the world. As a valued listener, your voice matters too. We love to hear your feedback and ideas, so don't be shy to let us know how we're doing in the ratings and comments. If you have a message for our production team or know someone who would be a perfect fit as a guest, you can find out more information on how to share your input at psychologyofentrepreneurship.com.
Before the break, your uniqueness, Melissa's awakening, and making today the best day ever. Now the meat and potatoes, or if you're Indian, the curry and rice section of the program. Melissa has an amazing TED Talk. Yes, this was done at TEDx Monash University, but it has been uploaded to the TED website and is now not a TEDx talk anymore, but a TED Talk. The topic, how your inner critic is holding you back. And that voice, well,
I personally think that there's only one voice, and you can call it your ego or your inner critic or your inner mean girl or your inner bad boy or negative Nancy, whatever voice you want to give it, right? And I think it's really important to give it a voice, which is what I talk about in my TED Talk. I take them through the cast process. And the first step of the cast process is C, creating a character. C stands for character. So you've got to give that voice a little character, and you can call it Bob, Mary, whatever you want. And I personally believe that there's this one voice, this one negative inner critic voice, but that voice has different disguises. So that voice might sound different and wear different clothes and, show up in different ways, but it's still the same negative voice, right? And I think that is a lot less confusing for people, because if they think there's multiple voices, they get overwhelmed. They're like, yeah, but this voice is saying this, and then this voice is saying this, and it's just one negative, limiting, fear-based voice, your ego. That's it. And so that's the first step is in the cast process is you've got to create this character. There is schools of thoughts that are like, you've got to kill the ego. And then there's some that are like, you got to make friends with it. So I personally believe we don't need to kill the ego. The ego is a part of us. And that voice is there it thinks it's helping you. It truly does think it's helping you, but it's not. And your job is to be discerning between its characters, like the characters that it plays, because that voice is also the voice that says, do not get in that car with that guy. Do not do that. This is a bad idea, Melissa, or do not walk down that alley. That is also the same voice, like that voice can also be super helpful. And so I feel like we really do have to create this character.
That's a really interesting approach. It's incredible how we can manipulate our own minds and attitudes with the right tools. If you've been listening to us from the beginning, you might remember Volume 8, where Todd Herman talked to us about the power of using an alter ego in situations that put you outside of your comfort zone. Giving that alter ego a name and personality is important, but you might be surprised at what he claims is the most popular alter ego used.
Sometimes people have a tough time believing that they can do it, but they don't have a tough time believing that Oprah can do it, or they don't have a tough time believing that Ellen DeGeneres can do it, or, insert any name of a character in a movie or a character in a favorite nonfiction or fiction piece, or an entertainer, whatever it might be, or an animal, which is a very popular one. You know what the most popular alter ego is that's used?
Spirit animal?
No. Grandma.
What?
Yep. Grandmother is the most popular alter ego that I have seen used amongst people, both men and women. For some people, it's that classic idea. And what's really important about this and why you want to have a resonant connection with that alter ego is because you really want to embody the fact that you do not want to dishonor who and what they represent by you showing up as that imposter self or that, muted self for some people. No, because your grandmother wouldn't do that.
I named my character Redonkulous, Ronsley, because I like the way the word sounds. It is a synonym for ridiculous, and it's hard to use redonkulous in everyday sentences without sounding like a total jackass. Melissa, I'm playing along. What is the second step?
The second step in the cast process is awareness. You got to become aware of it. And the way that you do that is you say, my inner mean girl or my inner critic is telling me that I can't launch this business, or I'm not good enough to write a book, or who do you think you are starting a podcast? No one's going to listen besides your mom, maybe. That's that inner critic voice. That it's so important to be aware of it, because she or he, whatever, I'll just speak from my experience. She is the one that will say those things. Who do you think you are starting a podcast? And also, okay, standing in the wings, about to walk onto my TED Talk, she was like, you're going to fall over. Everyone's going to laugh at you. You are not qualified enough. Who do you think you are? Like, she literally was saying those things. I had two choices in that moment. I could have listened to her, agreed, run in the other direction crying, or I could have practiced what I was about to just teach everybody, which is taking them through that cast process and do it then and there in the wings before I walked on stage, which is exactly what I did. And so we need to become aware of that voice. I find a lot of people say to me it's really helpful to write it down. So if you do have that voice going in your head right now, writing down, my inner critic is currently telling me that I can never start a podcast, or my inner critic is telling me that I'll never heal, or my inner critic is telling me I'll never get out of debt, or I'll never meet the guy, whatever it is. So writing it down, that is the second step.
For you listening, what is your inner critic telling you you can't do?
The third step is CAS, and that stands for shut. So what that means is we need to shut the door on our inner critic. So your inner critic is going to come knocking on your mental door to plant these seeds of doubt, these negative fear seeds of doubt. And instead of letting her in to have lunch and stay over and sleep over and wear your clothes and hang out, you say, thank you, but no thank you. I'm not interested today. Like, I'm too busy, living my dream life and helping people. I don't have time to entertain you. So thank you, but no thank you. Think of it like an annoying salesperson that's trying to sell you something that you're just not interested in. Okay. You say thank you, but no thank you.
Melissa, and the last step?
And then the last step in the cast process, T, stands for truth. You have to come back to the truth. You have to remember that she is not the truth. She is not telling you the truth. Her job, your inner critic's job, is to keep you stuck and small in your comfort zone. That is not why we are here. We are here to share our unique gifts with the world, to be the best version of ourselves, whatever that looks like. For some people, it's multiple 7-figure businesses. For some people, it's being the best mom. And it doesn't matter what it looks like, but you just need to come back to the truth of you, the truth of who you are, because what your inner critic tells you is not the truth.
What is your comfort zone? What annoys you? What things do you avoid?
Psychologist Rick Hanson's advice on dealing with your inner critic is to try regarding it as something that lacks credibility. Imagine it as a ridiculous character, like a silly cartoon villain.
That cast process is pretty impressive, and I suggest you taking 14 minutes out of your day to watch her TED Talk. It will be linked in the show notes. While you contemplate whether this is a method that you would try and implement, I wanted to make sure you have your definition of success. Because no amount of success is worth it if it doesn't match what you really believe success to be.
I feel like we definitely have to take inspired action. If you have a goal, you've got to take daily inspired action. That doesn't mean you flog yourself and you burn yourself out and you just push yourself at the detriment of your own health and happiness. Because then when you get there, you can't even celebrate because you're in hospital with adrenal fatigue like I was. So it's like, what is the point if you're going to burn yourself out in the process? Your highest role here on earth is to take responsibility for your energy, to make sure that you are in alignment, to make sure that you are in joy, because you then become, and this might be woo-woo, but you become a magnet for more things that are also vibrating at that high frequency. But if you are vibrating at a low frequency, then you are going to attract that into your life. And if you are vibrating at a high frequency, you are going to attract more of that into your life. Reflecting back though on my entrepreneurial journey is I did take a lot of action. I did show up. I did go for it. And it has got me to where I am today. So I'm so grateful. But it did burn me out a bit too. So it's like, what's the most important thing to you? Like for me now, the most important thing for me, like success to me, and each day it's like, did I do work that made a difference? Did I have a good time doing it? Did I connect with people that I love? Did I serve? Did I show up as the best version of me? Like these are really important for me now. As opposed to back when I first started, like it was just flog it until, I would work all day and night.
Working all day and night is what was told to us, I suppose. Work hard and you'll get all the success you desire. But that doesn't work when you are in a relationship, when there are other people around you that want the real you to show up, as Melissa explains.
Like when we first met, like we were working at nighttime. Now we have some strict boundaries around that, especially because we both work from home, and we had to put in some boundaries around that. Otherwise we would just work until midnight and then wonder why our relationship was heading south. So yeah, I think as well, it all comes back to what is meaningful to you? What's your definition of success? Because we all have different definitions of success. And what is success to you? So when you put your head on your pillow at nighttime, for you to say, today was a really good day. Today was a really successful day. What has to happen? And I got really clear on that. And I wrote down exactly what success means to me. And I truly do now live a life that's beyond my wildest dreams. Like every day I am so grateful. I get to do work that I love, surrounded by beautiful people. I live in paradise. I'm healthy. I'm married to my soulmate. I have beautiful friends. I have created all of this. I wasn't born like with all of this. Like I created it, and it took work and lots of therapy and thousands of dollars on coaches and counselors and support to get to where I am today. But it's all worth it. It's all worth it.
What have you created? Look at your life, your relationships, your business, your success. And while I let you contemplate that, Melissa has a second book
Well, my second book, Open Wide, the subtitle is A Radically Real Guide to Deep Love, Rocking Relationships, and Soulful Sex. And in that book, I talk a lot about the masculine and the feminine energy. And I personally believe we all have masculine and we all have feminine. And it's our duty to make sure that our masculine and our feminine is balanced within ourselves. Because if you're out of balance, like if I'm too masculine, I'm going to butt heads with my husband. And if I'm too feminine, we're also going to butt heads. And so it's my responsibility to notice when I'm out of balance. And I do have a tendency to go more toward the masculine because for a lot of my day, and this is not so much anymore because I've been able to, over the past year, living here, rewiring, reconnecting with Mother Nature, I've stepped a lot more into my feminine energy. But the doing, the achieving, the creating, the go-getting, that is more of that masculine yang energy. And it's great. We all need it. We need it. But I notice, if I stay too long in that, I will butt heads with my husband. So it's my responsibility to, when I finish my workday, is to do whatever I need to do to kind of get back more into my feminine energy. And there's little things and little tips and tricks. I talk about this in Open Wide that I do. Even something as simple as having a shower or connecting with Mother Nature or meditating or getting out of what I was wearing that day whilst I'm working and then just putting a different outfit on, even like putting on an essential oil, like these little things that you can do for the women listening that can really help you step back more into your feminine energy and to balance that within yourself, because the body wants homeostasis. The body wants a lovely, nice balance between your masculine and your feminine. And the more in tune you become within yourself, you can see when you're out of balance. I know when I've been too in my yang, when I've been too in my masculine. I know what that feels like in my body, and I know what I need to do to come back and rebalance it. And for me, one of the best is getting out into nature. It's one of the best ways to reground yourself and to reconnect yourself and to center yourself.
For me, this part coming up is the best bit of all. This bit changed me. The question I asked Melissa was, with the list of accomplishments she has, what was she truly proud of?
We're about to dive into Melissa's accomplishments before we wrap up. But before we do that, author of The Miracle Morning, Hal Elrod, gave us some amazing advice on the benefits of journaling to see how far you've come and truly recognize your progress. Back in volume 38 when he said this.
Here's what I found at the end of my first year journaling. But the week between Christmas and New Year's, I went back and read all of my entries. And while I did that, I had another notebook open and I wrote down on one side lessons, accomplishments, and commitments. That was it. So I would read and I would be like, oh yeah, I totally learned this thing, right? And I would write it in the lessons. And then I would go, oh yeah, I forgot that I accomplished, like, I did that, right? And because you're reading the journal, you're reading things like, man, I'm working hard on writing The Miracle Morning. I hope people like this. What if nobody bought, right? And then you realize, oh my gosh, I finished it. So there's an accomplishment. Here's the point. By doing what I call that an annual journal review, right? Nothing fancy, but most of us end the year with heightened gap focus. We end the year and go, man, there's so much more I wanted to do. I did not reach all of my goals. I'm not where I want to be. And we end the year often feeling like a failure, feeling like we could have, would have, should have done so much more, but we didn't. And right. And what happened when my first journal review and having those pages of lessons, accomplishments, and then commitments for the next year is I went, dude, I killed it last year.
I feel truly proud that I've been able to move through what I've been able to move through. I feel truly proud that I have reprogrammed so much, because I wouldn't have what I have if I didn't. And so I feel proud of myself for continuously doing the work and showing up to my meditation twice a day, every day, getting support from counselors, coaches, therapists, psychotherapists, all the people that have supported me over the past 10 years. I'm so grateful for them. But yeah, I think I'm proud of, sure, the big things, the books, but more, I'm proud that I had the courage to move through the limiting stuff that I moved through, because it's huge. And we've all got our stuff. And for me, it was just ginormous. And there was times where I thought, don't know if I'm going to be able to move through this. I just don't think it's possible. And you do. You do. You get through it and you're like, wow, I'm so proud of myself. Because the alternative is to stay in suffering and stay in darkness or depression. And I've been there and it's not fun. It's not fun. And we got a long time here. We got a long time here on earth. And so we may as well make the most of it. Like I said before, we don't know how long we're going to live here for. So we may as well have the best freaking time ever. Don't save the dress for the best occasion. Don't save up for the holiday. Don't wait. Don't hold back. Don't save the best cutlery. Don't just do it now. Whatever it is that you want to do in your life, do it now. Treat every day like Christmas.
Psychology of Entrepreneurship.
Coming up on the Psychology of Entrepreneurship, David Cohen Uncut. And when I mean uncut, I mean uncut.
Psychology of Entrepreneurship.
It's going to be the entire uncut version of my interview with the legend, CEO and founder of Techstars, David Cohen.
I'm incredibly lucky to have the co-founders that I've had right in my life. And I think it's been yin and yang with people like David Brown, who I've learned a ton from, but, sort of completed my skill set. Anytime someone talks about imposter syndrome, it really doesn't matter who you're talking to because pretty much everyone has it.
Psychology of Entrepreneurship.
I interviewed Melissa because she is the host of the top-rated Melissa Ambrosini Show podcast with over 10 million listens and counting. The best-selling author of Mastering Your Mean Girl and Open Wide. She's been named a self-help guru by Elle magazine, certified life coach, certified holistic health coach, certified yoga teacher. Her book, Mastering Your Mean Girl, has 4.7 out of 5 ratings on Amazon with almost 400 reviews. She is a stepmother, a wife, and a friend.
Psychology of Entrepreneurship.
This is a Must Amplify production. Special thanks to every guest expert that has appeared on the show. Editing and sound design by Tiago Vega. Voiceovers by Kelly Bunnyman. Guest research and content by Claire Gould and Corinne Castles. Project managed by Shannon Morrison. Produced and hosted by me, Ronsley Vaz. For more episodes and where to listen, go to mustamplify.com/POE.
Hey, it's Kaylee from Must Amplify. I'm the sound engineer for this volume of Psychology of Entrepreneurship. I'm part of the team that made this production come alive. I work as a part of a global team with our studios based in West End, Brisbane, Australia. If you would like a podcasting checklist, email me at kaylee@amplifyagency.media. That's KAILI@amplifyagency.media. We specialize in finding your voice and making sure it's heard by the right people. If you are considering whether a podcast is a good idea for your business, check out our other show on